Welcome to the Agency Uplift Podcast, the podcast all about the unique experience of growing a digital agency, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the learnings. I'm your host, Sean Lang, agency owner of over 7 years and co-founder of Social Commerce Club. And today I'm joined by Kristan, Servidad, founder of Sales Subs, and they are your B2B sales team with a monthly subscription, which sounds really interesting, and we'll definitely get into that. Kristan, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, so first up, I always like to get into people's origin stories. What led you here?
Oh man, it's a long spiel, but really the high level, and I think the story and message behind my origin story is a lot of grit. I started my sales career very, very early at a startup that was a B2C company selling nutrition and weight loss programs. I was one of the first founding employees. It was me and another coworker, and we started in the DMV area at our first location selling these products. And I really knew nothing about sales. It was really hands on learning, selling to clients that were mid level to high ticket sales items that we were selling. And grew that team from 1 to 25 plus people that I was managing, and learned a lot about being, a grit and being resourceful and working with you have. Being in a startup type community and a startup type company in general, you'll really have to learn to be resourceful and really connect with clients and connect with their story as well. So that carried into when I transitioned to B2B SaaS sales. And I was a lot of these companies we're in, we were also very startup like. So very small sales team, maybe less than 5 people. We had a SaaS product that was enterprise size that we were going after enterprise type customers, and ICPs that had very complex problems. So a lot of this was again using what I learned the first 6 years of my career, which is being resourceful and grit and really get in the weeds of these problems that our customers were facing. And a lot of that is foundational work. And so I think a lot through that I learned was not just professional skills, but learning about empathy, learning about resonating with your customer and client, connecting that with the product or service that you are offering. So I learned a lot through that journey. It's been 10 plus years now. A lot of my experience is in startups and startup like companies and going after clients and customers that are in the enterprise space.
Very cool. There's lots to talk about just on what you just said, but one thing that stands out to me is you mentioned startups multiple times, and
Mhm.
one way that I view agencies, kind of almost no matter what size, maybe not the big agencies, but agencies in general, because of the ever-changing landscape of digital and the different industries we serve and the economy, we're always kind of in startup mode,
Yep.
no matter whether we're like a solopreneur, a 5-person agency, a 50-person agency. It's kind of a business model that some people don't really have the stamina for. I guess you'd say.
It's tough.
Um,
Yeah.
but then some of us really really excel in it. Like I never would have thought, me personally, that I would have excelled in a startup landscape or a startup environment early on. And now when things don't feel so startup-y, if that's a word, then I start to wonder, like, what's going on? Like nothing's happening. Like
Yeah,
where's the chaos? The chaos generally means that exciting stuff is happening. So how
exactly.
how did you find personally um, the getting into the startup mentality? Because not everyone's able to. Clearly, some of us thrive in that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think I think one, if you're naturally drawn to it, you kind of find yourself stumbled upon it because certain opportunities will really you'll gravitate towards it because it's the most upside but the most risk at the same time.
Yep. Yep.
So, and I think that's really exciting to certain people, which is exciting to me. But I kind of go back to my earlier intro talk where I talk about grit and being resourceful. If you're a super resourceful person, so what I mean by that is you're looking for ways to take opportunities and find other ways to problem solve that opportunity that other people haven't done before with even less resources, and you think that's fun and challenging, it's a great space to be in. So I think you have to kind of understand yourself and know yourself and make sure it's a great fit. But it's one of the most exciting industries to be in, but also the most risky. And like you said, I mean, not everyone is for it, but you're always in startup mode regardless. If you're in a brand new startup, a one person startup, you have to have that mentality of using grit and being resourceful and finding ways to problem solve in ways that other people haven't done before with even less limited resources.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What does grit mean to you?
It's just sticking it out, man. But what I mean by that too is it's when you have an idea, and this goes back to a lot of like personal development, and a lot of people say this in the startup community and entrepreneur community, but when you have an idea and you really truly believe in it, it's standing your ground and fighting for that. And there's things that I've done in my career that were really against the grain when it comes to running a company or running sales that really kind of goes against a lot of teachings that we're taught. And I kind of quite I like to question it. And I said, well, it seems like it's not really working for us in this moment. Let's try something different that we're actually told the opposite to do. So I'm very much when it comes to grit pushing the boundaries and kind of sticking to my guns and using my own experience and data to back that up. So I think it's really having that solid foundation of what you believe in and then really fighting for it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And as somebody who I think I have a considerable amount of grit as well, but I never really thought that I did until I was forced to discover whether I had it or
Yeah.
not. I think that a lot of people, it's not something that they even think about until you get into a situation where the choice is either stick it out or drown, more or less.
Exactly. You have no
And
choice at
then,
that point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a great way to find yourself and learn who you truly are in these situations, and and working at startups or starting a startup, I think is more the thing, and in this case, of course, agencies. So, um, on that sort of topic, what are some big struggles that you've had running your B2B sales agency, and how have you sort of overcome those?
Oh, great question. It's about when I started my career, I really think about how I started with no connections, no one teaching me anything. I had to learn on my own. I think that's a lot of people can relate to that. We didn't have necessarily this, spoon-fed opportunities. And so when I started Sales Subs, I had experience as an enterprise account executive as a rep. So I've had experience selling these complex deals as a rep, but I didn't have the experience or the connections to start my own agency and have anyone guiding me through becoming a business owner on that sense. So a lot of the first time struggles was around, well, how do I even get clients? Because I know I can sell to people, but how do I get my own clients of my own that I'm not necessarily selling technology, I'm selling my own services.
Hmm.
So that was a whole, okay, I may not have the connections, but I understand the frameworks of sales. So let me just apply it to my own agency, and it's worked amazingly. I had no connections in businesses or on my own, or I even had a branding or a name for myself, but I just went out there and started talking to people, making connections. And it really came from no excuses and not having really anything to start with. So it was a really great
Interesting.
experience. And we're still going through it at Sales Subs. We're still making connections. We're still learning about what works and what doesn't. So it's a continuous cycle of expansion. But I mean, any business owner, startup, company knows you're always looking to expand. You're always learning. You're always finding ways to grow. So I think it's a process that you start that never really truly finishes.
Yeah, very, very true. If you could sort of distill some of those learnings down into either a framework or some like low hanging fruit, something that like a less experienced agency owner can apply today, what do you think you would say?
Gosh, I think this is what worked for me. And I know not everyone is going to start here, but for me, when I started Sales Subs, I had a continuous problem or pain points that kept coming up every time I was in corporate. So, meaning I had three main pain points that I was experiencing that I could just not find a solution for. So, I think that's a really great place to start. So, for us, it was I could not find a sales team that I could expand to that had the experience that we needed. That was very difficult because hiring internally is a lot of work. And sometimes is not always a great fit, right? Another one was we couldn't expand fast enough. That was a big thing in startups. So I started there, and then I went and talked to other customers or people within my network, and I said, "Hey, I have this problem. Are you guys experiencing the same thing?" And everyone else said, "Yeah, I mean, that's the norm. That's what everyone experiences." And I'm like, "Well, why isn't there a solution for it then? If we're all experiencing it on the rep side or as a leadership side, why is there no solution?" So that's kind of where I start. I always start, and my philosophy is, are there pain points and are other people resonating with those pain points? If it's true across the board and across the industry, I think you have an idea that's worth exploring there. So I think that's the first part. The second part is get really connected in community. That's a really great place to start. So
Yeah.
if that's going to trade shows or meetups in your local area. I started going to meetups that are local that are happy hours. So DC Startup Week is a really great place to start if you're in the DC area, where I went to happy hours and met people and asked them the same question. Are you experiencing the same problems? Which, lo and behold, of course, like everybody wants to expand their sales for, a low amount of investment with consistent results. But how do you go about that, right? So I think those 2 points are really great place to start. And the third, I think also be flexible because again, I talked about grit and standing your ground. And that is true when you have an idea, but know when to iterate and know when to be flexible because maybe your idea is great, but maybe how you execute the idea, it starts one way and then you have to learn to shift to something else. So I think it's knowing and kind of making sure that you continue to iterate as you go along.
Yeah, iteration is key. And of course, also continually reevaluating the data. Because yeah, there's
Yes.
no just one direction, one approach isn't going to work for every situation and not for the entire time. Like there we don't like to say this, but there is a time to quit. Right.
Exactly.
And you don't want that time to quit to be 2 years ago. And the last 2 years have been just kind of a waste because you're bullheadedly smacking your head against the same wall and not getting any results. So it, and I think that is where, and you mentioned this earlier, but getting kind of outside help or someone who's experienced, that's where it really, really comes into play of having somebody who can like stand outside of you and say, this thing that you're doing, it's not really working. I don't know if you've noticed. I noticed it's not working. Why don't we recalibrate and try a different approach?
Exactly, and that's why I first mentioned pain points because the pain is still there. Maybe the solution you're coming up with is not resonating, so maybe go back to the pain points and reiterate. So, again, it's there, and if you've done the research, the pain points are there that you're experiencing and people and your peers in your industry are experiencing. There's something there, so it's something to be said about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Definitely on the nose. How do you currently acquire new business?
Same thing. So everything I've learned in my career, I apply to sales subs and I teach my clients how to do as well. So a lot of it actually is networking. So I think I spoke to sales leader earlier and we talked about how cold outbound email is just not it. It was it maybe 5 years ago where you would get high open rates, a lot of meetings, but now we're shifting into this new economy where human connection is more of a conversion than automation is. And we're seeing
Yes.
that with AI, right? And it's here. It's here. Things that worked 5 years ago just don't work today.
And
So
Kristan, that's what this is. The reason I have a podcast is so that I can just have face-to-face connection with real human beings.
exactly.
And then down the road, if we want to collaborate on something, we will. But if I'm sending you an AI message, it's probably not going to happen.
It doesn't work. But here's the caveat. It's funny because that's what we do at Sales Subs, but there's a way to go about it. And there's a
Mm.
specific way to reach out to your audience.
Yep.
So I educate my clients on this, and this is what we do at Sales Sub. Outbound email is great, and these things that we were taught to bring in customers great, and so is LinkedIn messaging. But who are you sending that to? What are you exactly saying? I think that's where it gets lost in translation. A lot of companies think and start to think if I just blast this email out to my ideal customer base, they'll definitely book a meeting with me. That's not true. You may get a lot of high open rates, but the whole point and purpose is to get some sort of engagement. Like, for example, you and I, we connected on LinkedIn DM, but it leads to a conversation. So, how can we get that DM engaged? And so that we can have a meeting, have face-to-face conversations. So it's more strategic. And this is what I teach my clients is when we're going after your customer base, what are we exactly saying and what are we exactly offering them? Because we can't just blast it out. It's just not going to work out for anybody, as we all know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Do you have any I'm asking for actionable things just because I think that this big topic we're talking about in this episode is something that so many agency owners just really, really struggle with.
Yeah.
Do you have any actionable tips or maybe a don't do this list of LinkedIn DMs?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So with LinkedIn DMs, I'll give you like a very simple one. When I send out a LinkedIn DM, I'll always first add the connection, and in the little connection box, I'll say, "Hey, Sean, saw we had a few mutual connections. Would love to connect on here and expand my network." That to us at Sales Subs, we get about like a 60% acceptance rate just from that structure right there.
Wow.
So that's the purpose of what we do here at Sales Subs is let us just get you in the door, And then when you start having conversations with people, then that's when you can kind of start collecting data and seeing if this is going to resonate with what you're selling. But that's just like a simple, hey, I saw we have mutual connections, and you can do that by purchasing LinkedIn Sales Nav. I know some people want to be budget conscious, but if you want to get these types of results, you kind of have to use these search features where you can actually search down to mutual connections that you actually haven't added yet. So that's a really great place to start. And then the subsequent DMs that you do, this is where it can kind of make or break the thread and interest someone in having a conversation with you. And so this is where we really drill down when we have our one-on-one consultation sessions a week with my clients is, okay, let's send them these follow-up messages so we can entice them for a meeting, but we need to make it short and simple enough where it actually is engaging. So by the second message, I really actually I asked them a question. I go, "Hey Sean, I saw you have Uplift podcast. How's it going? What's been the response on that you've been having?" And have a conversation from there. And then towards the last few messages, that's when we're kind of closing and having a call to action where, hey, we've had a great conversation. I would love to hop on a call and talk about X, Y, and Z. So that's a great framework to start off with. You'll need to kind of iterate those second and third messages to make sure it's resonating. Some people will be responsive to it, some not, but you'll kind of get the flow once you've tested in the market to see what the responses are.
That's such great advice. Yeah, I love all of that. I'm learning too as we're listening. I mean, this is for the audience, but I'm also taking notes here too.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, but you can apply that to anything, right? So, like, if you're going after Fortune 1000 companies and you're going after like head of VP, head of retail, whatever, ask them the same questions. You know their pain points. That's where you started, and that's where you started your agency and servicing those types of people. Ask them, hey, I heard this is a big pain point within your position or your role. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? And then just see what they say. And then, iterate from there and get a conversation going. It's a lot of social work that you'll want to
Totally.
do.
I love that. That's awesome. One other question that came to mind, and this was earlier, so we're going to backtrack a little bit when you mentioned networking being very, very important. And I can definitely agree with you. Networking is incredibly important. As an introvert myself, the idea of networking has always caused a little bit of anxiety. I've gotten over that as I see and I've experienced the absolute transformational power it has. But are there any tips you would give to people who are introverted but still need to network? They
Yeah.
still need to put themselves out there.
Yeah. This is great because I do both. I like to network. I like to meet people. I like to build community. And that's such a great free way to just get started. And it's great personal development, right? Because we need to learn how to talk to people at some point because we're going to be talking to customers as agency owners, solve problems. We need to work on our communication. But this is where it's almost a contradictory, but this is where I love cold email and cold outbound, but done in a very strategic and thoughtful way where we're not just shotgunning our approach. So what do I mean by that? It's actually taking an email thread where I'm breaking down these pain points that I know these owners or these ICP people are experiencing and giving them a solution and booking a call one-on-one. Sometimes that's what, introverted people need is just a chance to have a one-on-one conversation. So
Mm.
I think that's where cold email or outbound email and cold LinkedIn DM works really, really well. Because sometimes you can't network your way into a bigger network. Sometimes you only have so much time to meet people in person. So I think when done well with the right guidance is a really great way to do it. And a lot of that takes iteration, making sure your pain points resonate. I'm very big about making sure, okay, what are we selling? Who are we selling to? And does this make sense? Are people resonating with it? And if you're not getting that, if you're sending cold emails and you're not getting the response you want, you need to go back and iterate. So that's a huge thing. So I really love outbound work done thoughtfully.
Thoughtfully, yes, not just a mindless shotgun blast. Thoughtfully,
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
key here.
Like, if I
Mhm.
were you, Sean, if I would honestly go on within my own network, use LinkedIn Sales Nav, see who are my mutual connections, and DM them, and then go from there. Like, you would just be surprised about how many people actually wanna connect and have genuine conversations.
Very cool, and that is something that I do currently now as well. And but you're giving me some additional tactics and tweaks to add to
Exactly.
my current strategy. That's awesome.
Mhm.
I always love to ask people who have been in this for a while, How has your agency changed since you started it?
Oh my gosh, great question. Well, you should have seen the first website. That was horrible. It's so ugly. And I did not have everything. It's so funny when we give advice or we talk about our experience. It's like, oh, don't do this and that, but that's what we started with and that's what we did in the beginning. And I mean, in the beginning, I was really focused on B2B SaaS companies, which we're still focused on, but I'm finding we're having three different types of niche clients that I didn't think that we would have in the beginning. And now based on our feedback, our messaging and who we're targeting is actually around those conversations we've had with clients or potential clients. So our ICP now is actually consulting companies, agency owners who are looking to expand on the sales side, even pre-SaaS companies who are in kind of their iteration phase where they just want feedback. They don't necessarily want customers. They want signups to their platform, so it's their SaaS platform, and feedback. They don't necessarily want to sell the product right now. And that's a really interesting use case. So
Mm.
it's our ICP changes. And we were talking about this earlier, iterate. We're iterating all the time. I thought our main ICP was going to be B2B SaaS companies that were really small, but actually it's actually turning into launched SaaS companies and agency and consulting owners. So yeah, it's very fun. It's very interesting.
You're highlighting a very regular conversation we have, but I want to keep having this conversation because I think it's so critical. And that is the need to first off, just have an ICP,
Mhm.
super, super, super critical. But then also the thing that you're adding to the conversation, which is sort of iterate on your understanding of who your ICP is
Yep.
and be able to change. So can you just talk a little bit about how you approach figuring out who your ICP is and why you think it's so important?
Yeah, because it can change sometimes based on what you're selling and how you're framing it. I think it's it goes back to pain points. When you choose an ICP or you're defining an ICP, you need to make sure it's exactly mapped to the pain point you're solving for. And I know we all know that. But I talk to these agency owners, or I'll talk to consulting companies, or I'll talk to these pre-launch SaaS companies, and their idea makes sense. But when they go to market, it doesn't resonate with their ICP, who they've defined already. So I'm always asking, well, how are these pain points relevant to what they're selling? And is it even being communicated well? So I think mapping it is very difficult. And it's a lot of part of strategy. And this is what a lot of leadership talks about when even big companies still talk about this to this day, obviously, because you'll need to iterate this. But I think if you can map it well, and what I mean by mapping well is maybe break it down in a few sentences where it can be clear what you're offering and how you're solving it. I think you're on the right track. But if you're kind of creating something where it requires like a lengthy explanation and someone reads that, or maybe an ICP reads that and they're just not engaging with you, that's a sign that you probably need to go back and iterate.
That makes a lot of sense. I would assume that when you start working with a business and you're asking them for all of this information and you're asking them to clarify their ICP, I would assume that often you're uncovering that they don't have a clear enough idea of their
That's
ICP
correct.
and that they are then forced to now get a little bit better and figure that stuff out.
Exactly, and that's the whole part of sales subs. I mean, it's funny because on the surface, you can see us and think that, "Oh, they're just another lead gen agency." But if you really uncover our services and when we start doing our strategy sessions, I meet once a week with my clients, you'll find out we're actually more of a consulting and strategy company. We're really advising on ICP and strategy and messaging and mapping use cases to pain points. And it's a lot of thoughtful go to market strategy, essentially, is what we're doing. And then we just happen to execute on that, which is cold LinkedIn, cold emails, and pipeline sales calls where we can manage those sales calls as well. So it's so funny how the perception of our companies really is not in totality of what we do, but you start to realize once you start to work with us.
Yeah, and well, it's also it's part of the messaging and the ICP as well as you kind of need to hit people at that very top pain point, and then once they
Exactly.
start to talk to you, then they realize, oh, there's actually more here, and also I have more deeper, more root pain points that also need to be addressed as well. But you kind of have to. Well, it's I was talking about this in a recent podcast episode where you kind of have to feed people the ice cream before you can get them to eat the broccoli,
Exactly,
basically,
Sean,
right?
you
And
get
so like
it.
that initial offer is the ice cream, and then there's broccoli hidden with inside. Get your vegetables.
Exactly, exactly, you get it.
So We haven't actually explicitly talked about what Sales Subs actually does. So why don't you walk me through a little bit of that?
Sure. I mean, we were talking about it already, and I'm not sure if already you can tell, but sales. Think of sales subs as essentially your fractional head of sales or fractional account executive or fractional sales rep. So what we do is we focus on strategy first. So again, like what we were speaking about, mapping that ICP and pain points and clearly communicating what you're offering. That's a huge part of sales and part of marketing, but mostly sales. Because when we go to market and we talk to our customers, we want to make sure that this is going to be a conversation that's worth having of value. So that's a big part of it. And then on the other side of it, really think of us as someone that's going out to market and inquiring attention to your product or service. So we're hopping on calls with your customers or potential customers and enticing them and learning more about what you're offering. So a lot of our strategy is around cold outbound emailing and cold LinkedIn one-on-one messaging. And then within the emailing section, we break down strategy. So cold outbound is kind of the main strategy people want to start with. But I like to really encourage, okay, are you going to trade shows? Do you have referral partners? Do you have what else in your network that we can target? And you'll notice that a lot of those other campaign ideas that I mentioned actually are the ones that bring in the most meetings. So yeah, it's a lot of a great way for companies to have a fractional AE or a fractional sales team and a monthly subscription. So if you're a startup and you go, hey, I don't have the funds or the time to hire someone internally and train them on our product, I need results quick because a lot of startups need revenue this quarter. And that's what Sales Subs really focuses on. So you can pick a plan that works best for you and scale as you need.
Very, very cool. And very, very, very timely for, I'm sure, a number of people listening to this right now.
Yeah.
One additional thing I love to ask right now, AI and automation, the usage of that within agencies is so pervasive and so, I think, critical. Are there any interesting ways that you're using AI or automation currently?
Yeah, we use AI all the time. It's a great resource to kind of get you started and structure your ideas. So obviously we'll use like ChatGPT, or we have a lot of platforms that help write outbound emails. We use them to structure our emails, but we don't use them to create any of the strategy or content. So I want to make that very clear. So what I mean by that is it's great at taking ideas and forming it into sequences or
Yeah.
into steps. But when we actually get into the content, we're tailoring the entire thing. We're gutting it out essentially. So it's a great way to keep on track. We're also using it to create content on LinkedIn and come up with ideas. So it's a great helper. And we know there's also AI BDRs out there too. Big fan of those as well because it automates. But again, I go back to pain point and ICP and strategy. If we automate the whole thing and it's not resonating with buyers and you're not getting meetings, the whole system is not worth it. So but we do use it to support and structure and stuff of that nature.
Very cool. What is one thing that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Gosh, I think a great question I think people should ask us is how do we use language in a way that it can actually resonate with our customers. So how do we take what we've talked about and utilize it and use it today? And I think this is what we're doing right now in our outbound emails and getting meetings is we actually call out the pain point and we don't and we use harsh words like, hey, we know you're wasting money here. Or, "Hey, we know this is an issue and you're not solving it." And we're using that to get high engagement rates. So we have a cold outbound email right now that's getting a 90% open rate, and it's booked
Wow.
20 meetings. It's insane. It's insane. It's sent 1,000 emails so far. So it's crazy, but it's yeah. I think use language is such a powerful tool if you can really take these pain points and things that customers care about and really make it precise and simple, but also make it very direct as if it's an issue that needs to get solved today. I think you're going to find a lot of engagement with your service and product.
That's wise, wise words. Well, Kristan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Where can people find out more about you and Sales Subs?
Yeah, salesubs.com. You can view everything that I talked about on there. If you want to get connected with me, it's Kristan Servidad at LinkedIn. It's a great place to get connected there. Feel free to DM me, add me, follow me on there. I post a lot of articles and thought leadership on there. So anything that you need, from how to write a cold email or how to write a subject line, I actually post on my page. So if this podcast is a kind of an introduction to that and you want more, feel free to look on my page there on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean.